This is World News Program coming to you live from Algiers with me, Madame Zian, and we begin with the headlines. More than 50 killed, including 23 aid seekers in horrific Zionist massacres in the Gaza Strip. Hospitals in the Strip report they are dealing with an advanced level of famine. And Slovenia bans arms trade with Israel. Coming up next in the visit by the first senior official from Syria's new government to Russia, President Putin meets with al-Shaybani at the Kremlin. Damascus affirms its aspiration for full and sincere Russian cooperation, while Moscow expresses hope that al-Shah will attend the upcoming Russian-Arab summit. And amid the ongoing political deadlock, calls are growing in Libya to end the transitional phases and hold elections. During his meeting with Libya's representative to the UN, Guterres reaffirms his commitment to mobilize international support for the political process, and the UN mission says that Libya's challenges require renewed international backing. Hello and welcome back to the details of your nightly news. First, more than 50 Palestinians, the majority of them children and women civilians, were martyred as a result of ongoing Israeli occupation forces bombardment of various areas across the Gaza Strip since dawn on Thursday. Palestinian media reported that an entire family was martyred after an Israeli drone strike targeted a tent in the center of Deir Balah. And 15 Palestinians were martyred and others injured on Thursday morning in an Israeli occupation strike targeting civilians in the central area of the Gaza Strip. Al-Awda Hospital in Nusayrat reported that its medical teams received 15 martyrs and more than 60 wounded following the occupation's targeting of gatherings of Palestinians near an aid distribution point on Salah ad-Din Street south of Wadi Gaza in the central strip. The Palestinian Ministry of Health stated that the Israeli occupation is practicing enforced disappearance against detained members of medical teams. In a statement issued Thursday, the ministry affirmed that 10 days have passed since the abduction of Dr. Marwan al-Hams by Israeli occupation forces, and there's still no information regarding his health condition or the circumstances of his detention. The same source added that the number of detained medical personnel in Israeli prisons has risen to 361, noting that testimonies from released prisoners and their lawyers confirm the harsh conditions of detention and mistreatment they face. Al-Shifa Hospital administration in the Gaza Strip has warned of a worsening humanitarian situation, confirming that the region is facing an advanced level of famine that could harm or that could have serious long-term consequences. Medical sources at the hospital stress that the current conditions require immediate action from the international community to aid people of Gaza and end their ongoing suffering. As famine tightens its grip on Gaza, the humanitarian catastrophe deepens by the day. Starvation is claiming lives, medicine is vanishing, and those who survive grow weaker with each passing hour. Yet the occupation's relentless assault shows no sign of ending. Nabil Khazini had more details.
On the shores of Gaza, where families now live in tents torn by wind and war, 3-month-old Muntaha sleeps in a cradle of hardship. Her name in Arabic holds the meaning of the ultimate goal, a word full of promise and a symbol of reaching the highest point. Yet for this baby, even the most basic right to food is denied. Her grandmother prepares a thin lentil soup or herbal tea, carefully straining it before pouring it into a bottle to feed the baby, fully aware that this makes Muntaha cry in pain, but she gives it anyway, desperate to keep her from going hungry.
I swear I resort to anise tea for the girl. She's not eating and there's no sugar. Where can I get her sugar? I give her a bit of anise and she drinks a bit. At times, when we get lentil soup from the kitchen, I strain the water and I try to feed her. What can I do?
What could be worse than this? People weakened by hunger, standing in long lines for hours under the scorching heat, struggling just to receive the smallest amount of food. The United Nations accused Thursday the occupation of killing Palestinians seeking food in Gaza after starving them. The UN said that in only 2 days, 105 Palestinians were reportedly killed and at least 680 were injured.
In total, since May 27, at least 1,373 Palestinians have been killed while seeking food. 859 in the vicinity of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sites and 514 along the routes of food convoys. Most of these killings were committed by the Israeli military. This humanitarian catastrophe is human-made. It is a direct result of policies imposed by Israel that have severely reduced the amount of life-saving assistance in the Gaza Strip.
The alarm has been raised, warning that the risk is severe and projecting catastrophic levels of food insecurity within just 1 month if urgent action isn't taken, an action that hasn't been taken yet, despite a disaster clearly unfolding in front of the watching world.
And Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson described on Thursday what is happening in the Gaza Strip as a horrific war of genocide and starvation. He stated that Israel is failing to meet its obligations regarding the distribution of emergency aid to the starving and called on the European Union to suspend the trade component of the EU-Israel Partnership Agreement as soon as possible. The Swedish Prime Minister also urged for increased economic pressure on the occupation to force it to allow the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza without obstruction. The office of Portuguese Prime Minister Luís Montenegro announced that his government will consult with the President and Parliament with the aim of recognizing the State of Palestine at the UN next September. A statement from Montenegro's office said that Portugal is studying recognition of the State of Palestine as part of a process that could take place during the 80th session of the UN General Assembly in New York this September. German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul announced the need to immediately begin the process of recognizing the State of Palestine, stressing that the time has come to take concrete steps toward this goal. In remarks to Reuters, the German minister emphasized that the two-state solution is the only path capable of ensuring peace, security, and dignity for all. He also stated that the current situation in Gaza requires urgent and effective intervention. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced on Wednesday that his country intends to recognize the State of Palestine in September. A statement from the Prime Minister's office confirmed that Ottawa plans to proceed with the recognition of the State of Palestine.
Canada intends to recognize the State of Palestine at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025.
And Slovenian state news agency said that Slovenia imposed on Thursday an embargo on exports, imports, and the transit of arms to the Zionist entity 2 weeks after it declared Zionist ministers persona non grata. The measure was announced by Prime Minister Robert Golob after a government session. Golob said that Slovenia was the first European country to make such a move. Slovenia recognized a Palestinian state in June last year and has since repeatedly called for a ceasefire in Gaza and increased aid deliveries to the enclave. And Syria has expressed its aspiration for full and sincere cooperation with Russia to support the path of transitional justice in the country. Syrian Foreign Minister Assad Hassan al-Shibani, during a meeting with his Russian counterpart, affirmed that cooperation with Russia is not based on past legacies, but on mutual respect and sovereignty.
Today we represent a new Syria, and of course we're interested in establishing proper interaction and relations between our countries, which would be based on cooperation and mutual respect, and we're working to fill the political vacuum that has formed the security sphere after the events of December.
In Moscow on Thursday invited Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara to attend the upcoming Russian-Arab summit scheduled for October. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, during his meeting with Syrian Foreign Minister Assad al-Shibani in Moscow, said that Russia hopes President al-Shara will attend the summit between Russia and Arab states, affirming his country's support for developing relations, with Damascus based on mutual respect and shared interests.
We agreed to make the inspection of all the agreements we have. This issue has been already touched upon before. We had some contacts on it, but as I understand the Minister Shaybani, we decided that this process has to be put on a regular basis. It includes also security issues, training of personnel as civil one as military. All of it interests our Syrian colleagues, and we will work on it.
Вызывает интерес у сирийских наших коллег, и мы этим будем заниматься.
And in Lebanon, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun called on Lebanese political parties to expedite the handover of their weapons so the arms remain exclusively in the hands of the army and other security forces. In his speech delivered Thursday on the occasion of Army Day, Aoun stressed that this call stems from his commitment to Lebanon's sovereignty, the security of its borders and territory, and the goal of building a state that embraces all Lebanese. He reaffirmed that weapons must be exclusively under the control of the army and state security forces.
It is my duty and the duty of all political parties, through the Council of Ministers, the Supreme Defense Council, the Parliament, and all political forces, to seize this historic opportunity and without hesitation push to assert the exclusive possession of weapons in the hands of the army and security forces exclusively and on all Lebanese territory today before tomorrow.
Lebanese President Joseph Aoun also stated that the Israeli occupation entity is preventing civilians from returning to their destroyed villages and is refusing to allow reconstruction in the south following its aggression against Lebanon. In a televised speech Thursday morning on the occasion of Lebanese Army Day, Aoun reiterated his country's demand for an end to the Israeli aggression, the withdrawal of occupation forces from Lebanese territory, and the release of prisoners. He also noted that the Lebanese army requires $1 billion annually over the next 10 years to support its operations. In Libyan developments, Libya's permanent representative to the UN, Taher al-Sunni, called for a focus on ending the transitional phases and holding elections as soon as possible, describing them as the cornerstone for establishing state institutions and achieving stability. In a post on X Thursday following his meeting with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, al-Sunni emphasized the need to establish an effective dialogue mechanism among active political forces, free from all forms of foreign interference, and ensuring a clear timeline and tangible outcomes. He also stressed the importance of Libyan leadership and national ownership of the political process. And for his part, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed his personal commitment to closely following developments in Libya and maintaining ongoing communication with his special representative Hannah Tete, according to the Libyan news agency. The same source added that Guterres affirmed his intention to intensify communication with key international stakeholders involved in the Libyan file, with the goal of ending harmful foreign interference and pushing the international community to support the upcoming political process and achieve lasting peace and stability in Libya. The UN Special Representative to Libya, Hannah Tete, stated also that the multiple challenges facing Libya stemming from the intersection of political, economic, security, and human rights dimensions require renewed international commitment to supporting Libyan-led efforts. This came during her chairing of a meeting of the heads of the Berlin Process working groups.
The multiple challenges facing Libya as a result of the ongoing overlapping in the political, economic, security, and human rights dimensions require a renewed international commitment to support Libyan efforts. The renewed working groups constitute a suitable platform for this support.
Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune received the foreign ministers of the G4 group comprising Algeria, Nigeria, South Africa, and Ethiopia, according to a statement from the Algerian presidency. The Algerian Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, received his Nigerian counterpart, Youssef Maitama Tougar, on Thursday at the ministry's headquarters as part of an official visit to Algeria. According to a statement from the Algerian Foreign Ministry, the two ministers agreed to begin preparations for the next session of the High Joint Committee for Cooperation between the two countries. They also discussed joint efforts to strengthen the brotherly and cooperative relations between Algeria and Nigeria and exchanged views on current international and regional issues, particularly matters related to joint African action under the African Union, as well as recent political and security developments in the two countries' shared Sahel-Saharan space. Algerian Minister of Energy and Mines Mohamed Arqab, together with Nigerian Foreign Minister Youssef Maitama Tougar, reviewed the progress of technical and economic feasibility studies related to the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline project, described as one of the region's most important energy initiatives. According to a statement from the Algerian Ministry of Energy, the two sides, during a meeting in Algiers, praised the quality of relations between their countries and reaffirmed their joint will to elevate those ties to higher levels of strategic partnership. The statement added that the Nigerian foreign minister commended Algeria's efforts in supporting African cooperation initiatives, particularly through the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline project, which he described as a genuine project. He also noted that Nigeria has made significant progress on the project and is currently working to connect the country's northern regions to the gas network in order to complete the Nigerian segment of the pipeline. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune received at the presidential headquarters the ambassador of the Republic of Lebanon, Mohammed Mahmoud Hassan, who paid him a farewell visit. According to a statement from the Algerian presidency, the meeting was attended by the Chief of Staff of the presidency, Boualam Boualam, and the president's diplomatic advisor, Ammar Abba. Following his meeting with President Tebboune, Ambassador Mohammed Mahmoud Hassan stated that Algerian-Lebanese relations are currently experiencing one of their most distinguished phases, crowned by the historic visit of President Joseph Aoun. He expressed his wishes for continued security and prosperity for Algeria.
We thank the Algerian people and Algerian leadership for hosting the ambassador and hosting Lebanon and the Lebanese people. And today, we experience the best relations with brotherly Algeria. The end of my diplomatic duties, thank God, was crowned with the visit of the Lebanese President, General Joseph Aoun. This successful and distinguished visit at all levels, at the economic, cultural, political, and social level, came to enshrine the fraternal relations that link Algeria with Lebanon.
And Algeria is continuing its technical and logistical preparations to host the 4th edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair 2025, scheduled to take place from September 4 to 10 in Algiers. In a statement, the Algerian Ministry of Commerce highlighted the major significance of this economic event, describing it as a strategic platform to promote economic integration among African countries and an opportunity to showcase national capabilities, particularly in industrial production, agricultural, manufacturing, services, and creative industries, as promising pillars for diversifying the national economy and boosting its competitiveness within the continental market. And in other news, the joint force of the armed struggle movements in Al-Fashir announced it had achieved victories over the rapid support forces, inflicting hundreds of casualties among their ranks. In a statement, the spokesperson for the armed forces, the joint forces and allied units in Al-Fashir, Ahmed Hussein Mustafa, said the army had thwarted RSF plans in the city, killing hundreds of its fighters and seizing several fully equipped combat vehicles. The Sudanese government has called on the UN Human Rights Office to document all crimes and violations committed by the RSF in Darfur. During a meeting with the UN-appointed expert on human rights situation in Sudan, the governor of Darfur stated that the RSF continues to carry out violations targeting essential institutions such as hospitals, schools, residential areas, and even humanitarian aid corridors.
في الحقيقة تم مناقشة في عدد من القضايا.
In fact, several issues were discussed, the first of which, of course, the Darfur issue, especially the siege imposed by the rapid support forces in Al-Fashir, the humanitarian situation inside Al-Fashir, especially the conditions of women and children, and the destruction of vital infrastructure, such as hospitals, schools, and large civilian gatherings, as well as the crossings through which aid enters Sudan. We also asked the Human Rights Office to document the crimes committed by the rapid support forces. This is what we demand from our side as the Sudanese government, and from their side, they may have some comments.
UN spokesperson Farhan Haq stated on Wednesday that the Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs is alarmed by the growing levels of hunger, illness, and displacement affecting several regions of Sudan. According to a medical organization, 13 children died last month from malnutrition-related causes in a displacement camp in Sudan's Darfur region, where civil war has triggered the world's most severe humanitarian crisis.
These cascading crises demand increased international support. The 2025 response plan, seeking $4.2 billion to assist 21 million of the most vulnerable people across Sudan, is currently 23% funded, with $952 million received to date. OCHA once again calls on donors to scale up funding for the response.
And Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said that Canada's trade negotiations with the United Nations or the United States may not be completed by President Donald Trump's August 1st deadline, especially as new trade measures introduced by Trump could further impact certain Canadian industries. Carney described the discussions as complex, wide-ranging, and productive. He noted that the negotiations are still in progress and involve a broad range of issues. And in Tunisia, official authorities have developed programs to address the phenomenon of coastal erosion by implementing protection and restoration projects covering approximately 35 kilometers of coastline. These efforts include areas such as the Qarqana Islands in Sfax, Al Rafraf, and Benzert, and Sousse, with the aim of safeguarding Tunisia's economic fabric. Osama Ayadi has the report.
Along the southern Mediterranean in Tunisia, erosion is rapidly eating up the coastline, threatening both livelihoods and heritage. More than 35% of Tunisia's beaches are eroding, with some areas in Hammamat losing up to 8 meters annually, according to a 2021 World Bank report. Now here is this more visible than in Kirkina, a low-lying archipelago off Tunisia's east coast, where the sea is steadily devouring the land.
The sea advanced and ate away this entire area, including water reservoirs that are now buried. Their surfaces are now visible because of the dust. Some sections are completely covered and no longer visible under the soil. The water reservoirs here were used to collect rainwater.
The encroaching sea threatens more than just leisure. It's affecting Kirkina's economy, rooted in fishing and agriculture. Traditional fishing techniques such as the Sharfia system, a sustainable method recognized by UNESCO, is being disrupted by rising sea temperatures and invasive species like the blue crab. The Tunisian Ministry of Environment warns that around 60 islands in the country are at high risk of submersion due to sea level rise. In coastal regions, erosion has already begun to infiltrate inland soil, damaging ecosystem and contaminating farmland with salt.
30% of Tunisia's coastline is threatened by coastal erosion or exposed to the impacts of climate change. As part of Tunisian-German cooperation and the Tunisian Coastal Protection Project, approximately 11 kilometers of the Kirkena Islands have been scheduled for protection against coastal erosion and sea surges across 7 areas.
The broader economic impact is mounting. A World Bank study estimates that coastal erosion costs Tunisia approximately 2.8% of its GDP each year, with most of the country's infrastructure, industry and tourism clustered near the coast. The erosion poses an existential threat. Once forested coasts now hold lone palm trees standing in salt-bleached sand. Concrete barriers built decades ago to fight back the waves are crumbling. Some locals have started small-scale restoration efforts, rebuilding piers and shoring up sea walls, but the sheer scale of the threat may soon overwhelm them.
Ladies and gentlemen, our program has come to an end. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.